Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 622, composition of PEIA Finance Board. Third reading of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill. The senior senator from the 15th.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 622 changes the experience requirements and reduces the number of members of the Public Employees Insurance Agency Finance Board. The bill reduces the number of members appointed by the governor from 10 to 8, commencing on July the 1st of 2016. The board will consist of 8 members with staggered terms to be determined by the governor. However, the bill provides that any member of the board in office on July the 1st may continue to serve until a successor has been appointed and qualified. 1 member shall represent the interests of the education employees, 1 member of public employees, 1 member of the retired employees, 1 member of a participating political subdivision, 4 members of a selected, 4 members are selected from the public at large, and the bill lays out the requirements for each of these members. No member may be a registered lobbyist. The bill also provides that 5 rather than 6 members constitute a quorum. I urge passage, Mr.
Questions
President.
on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? Senator from Greenbrier.
If the senator would yield, please.
Senator yields. Senator yields.
Senator, there are a few questions I have. I was on committee discussion of this. What are the members of the PEIA board paid for this service? What are they paid? Their payment compensation?
I don't believe there's any compensation.
Okay. And we have 10 on the board now based on statute, and the governor, I think, has 2 appointments waiting to come still for those 10, correct? Is that correct? It hasn't been fully filled.
Yes, they haven't been fully filled.
Okay. The first question I have, and I suppose you would say that's the policy of the committee, why are we dropping from 10 to 8? What's the reason for that?
I'm not entirely sure why we've dropped from 10 to 8, except for we realize that there's a problem with this board. Well, we come into this legislative cycle to where we had a $124 million shortfall, and there was issues with this board. And this is an attempt to go through and to reconstitute it in a way so that we can expect a better performance than what there has been in the past. And I would, in my opinion, anticipate that that's the reason why.
And may I ask what the problem the board was that we had? What was the problem that's there now?
Please repeat that.
What's the problem with the present board?
What's the problem with the present board?
Yes.
Well, to start with, at the beginning of this session, we had a $124 million shortfall on the PEIA, and only once over the last 5 years was there a premium increase from that PEIA. In 2011, the auditor, the legislative auditor, determined that there was between 22,000 people that was not or shouldn't have been receiving the PEIA, that were either divorced or children over the age of 26, that actually costs the taxpayer and the state $23 million. So there are just a few of the examples of why this board probably needed a little bit of work done to it.
So who will remain on this board with this new appointment? Do we replace the whole board when we reduce to 8?
I anticipated that question, and I highlighted it.
I had a feeling you might have.
First one is that one member shall be from the interest of education employees.
Right.
And that's exactly the same as what it was before, but they went on to a little bit further. The member must hold a bachelor's degree, must have obtained teacher certification, must be employed as a teacher for a period of at least 3 years prior to his or her appointment, and must remain a teacher for the duration of his or her appointment to remain eligible to serve on the board. So that one's the same. Now, the next one.
Well, excuse me, I don't want to interrupt, but it's not the same as what we have right now, correct? It's not the same as the code is now. That it could be the same person, but the code's not the same. Is that, am I wrong in that?
In the struck out of line in comparable, it says one member shall represent the interest of education employees.
That's right.
And
so we expanded that.
So it says the same thing, but what they did was there's a definition of what that meant. And that's really where it goes down through. Now, who lost out on this? Well, who lost out? It's probably not a good terminology, but that's Blair speak. One of them is that one shall represent the interest of organized labor.
All right.
That has been removed. And then where the changes the rest of it is 5 from at large. Now it's 4 at large, and I think that should be of interest to you. One member of these 4 shall be selected from the public at large and generally have the knowledge and expertise relating to financing, development, and management of employee benefit programs. The next one will be a member selected from the public at large that has at least 3 years of experience in insurance benefits business. Another member is one member, or will be selected the public at large. It must be a certified public accountant with at least 3 years of experience with financial management, employment benefits program experience as well. And then the last member of the public at large will have a healthcare actuary or a certified public accountant with at least 3 years of financial experience with the healthcare marketplace. Right. So, as you can see, it was defined out a lot greater, hoping for better results.
Okay. What's and maybe I can just talk about this in remarks in a moment, but the purpose of the PEIA board was for what? What was their purpose, the PEIA board's purpose, this representative board? What was their job originally? What were they to do? I don't mean to spring it that way. Who's responsible for what happened to PEIA? Is it the board's responsibility for what happened, the board we appointed, or who did they respond back to? You understand what I'm asking? And maybe I didn't ask it well.
The governor appoints them, and
yes,
I believe that they would respond back to the governor, but
who set the PEIA board up initially?
Well, I'm not a historian, so I can't answer that question. Okay. But give me a moment. And maybe somebody
and I will tell you where I'm going. This was the legislature's responsibility initially, correct? And we gave that responsibility to PIB, I believe, and then PIA.
Okay, so I was going one step back further than that. Who wanted this to be set up and came to the legislature? That's why I couldn't answer that question. Obviously, the legislature set it up, and the legislature at any given point in time can do what it wishes to with this to put it in line. This is exactly what we're doing here today.
And the problems, and I guess the question I'm asking you, you're telling me that the problems we have with PEIA were because of this board, or are they because of the legislature's inaction?
According to counsel, and I believe that it's accurate too, they actually came to the legislature and asked for help. And when they came to asking for the help, it was in the form of dollars.
That's correct. I think you're right, and I would agree with that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
You're very welcome.
Senator from Wayne.
Would the senator from Berkeley continue?
We continue to yield.
Sure. Senator, having chaired the Select Committee on PEIA back in '95, and when we set up the structure that we have right now, when you sit here and put in no member may be a registered lobbyist, no member may be a registered lobbyist. So it's no secret that one of my best friends, who has since passed, was on the PEIA board until he died. He was a lobbyist. His name was John Ruddick. John was a great member of the PEIA board, and one of the great attributes that John had is John understood the political system as well as the insurance system, and he was a CPA. So if we continue to have this measure in here, would that preclude someone like John Ruddick that I think most members that knew him would say, that's a great person to have in that position? Would that preclude him from serving?
I don't think I need to look at council to answer that question, and the answer is yes. Because if he was a registered lobbyist, yes. And
even though he didn't lobby,
we're on third reading today, though, Senator, and and this could have been adjusted yesterday or in committee as well. So here we are on third reading on this. So the answer to your question is yes.
But wait a minute, let's go back through this. What committees has this gone through?
It has went through the Committee of Government Organization, and I believe...
And no representative from my district, neither the senator from Cabell or I, are on that committee, and we do look at things. I certainly have a lot of other things that I look at, and did not, and shame on me for not catching it until today. But I think the fact that you're saying no registered lobbyist can be on this when you've got registered lobbyists up here that I think add a lot to our whole process here, and in particularly this person that I'm talking about had no axe to grind anywhere other than he had great expertise.
Well, with all due respect, that is a comment or a speech and then discussion on this bill. It's not a question to me because I can't do anything about it at this point in time. So if you want to vote against it or speak against it, that's fine. But it's not a question, Senator, that I can actually do anything other than just say I answered it already.
You answered my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Further discussion. Senior Senator from the 16th. Well, Senator yields.
There seems to be some audio difficulties in the Senate right now. We hope our colleagues at the Capitol and on the Senate floor are working on that. Please stand by.
They finally figured out how to keep me quiet. Thank you. Okay, so I have other theories on that. Okay, so on this bill, we are reconstituting and changing the PEIA Finance Board because I heard you say because of the $124 million that they need in order to stabilize it. And I heard fraud in the sense that there was people collecting PEIA when they weren't supposed to. Tell me again why we're doing this so I understand clearly.
It was an auditor's report, legislative auditor's report, that actually indicated that. And
indicated
the
what?
bottom line is, Senator, and I believe where you're going with the question is, why are we doing this? And The original legislation was that it wasn't detailed out in great enough detail for each member for their expertises. I think that that's what you're looking for in your question, and this is exactly what this bill does, is provides more detailed qualifications on what these members of this board will be, their background, so to speak, and what they bring to the PEIA board. So in hopes of, and when I mentioned $124 million, and when I mentioned of where the auditors, legislative auditors had determined that there was $23 million of that was expended, probably fraudulently might be too strong of a word. I don't know how to go exactly what word to use for that, but this is just some examples. And I think that we as a legislative body have a duty to be able to see if something's not working right, tweak it and improve upon it, and see if we can't make it so that we don't experience problems like we're experienced this year.
Okay, so that's what I want to. That's what I'm asking about the problems that you see, that why we need to do this. You know, if it's not broke, why fix it? You feel it's broke, and we need to reconstitute it, and that's what I want to get to is why. What do you see that's broke that we have to reconstitute this PEIA board? What is it that what's the problem?
If $124 million shortfall over 5 years with only one premium increase isn't problem enough for you, I don't know what other answer to give to you, sir.
Okay, is there other, I mean, I'll talk about that, but was there something else that you had mentioned that was a problem also with this board? I had heard something in regards to folks were getting health care when they weren't married or they had been married, and there was some...
That was a legislative auditor's report that took place in 2011.
Okay, so that was another problem you had mentioned to the senator from Greenbrier. Now, let me get to that. I thought this body, did we not, pass a bill that addressed that issue. I thought we passed legislation that addressed that one problem that you mentioned about the idea that if someone was married, they got a divorce, and they were still getting PEIA. I thought we passed something here, did we not, to address that issue legislatively?
I can't answer that, and council's only been here for 1 year, so maybe somebody else...
Well, I mean, we just did it this year.
Maybe somebody else in this chamber can.
Okay, well, I can ask the question later. Now, the $124 million, are you saying that shortfall, the blame should go to the PEIA board? That's what that $124 million, the board itself, the way it is today, should be blamed for that $124 million. Therefore, that's why we have to do something about this board.
And I would say partially. There's plenty of blame to go around for that. And to single away one is unacceptable. This legislative body and the one at the other end of the building can share part of the blame. The executive branch can share part of the blame. There was a lot of people apparently asleep at the wheel when it came time to deal with this. Okay? It's been passed on and accumulated up to where we have a $124 million problem. This is not about the past. What this is the future. The future of trying to prevent, at least have reasonable expectations that we're preventing something like this from happening into the future by increasing the qualifications of the experience of each of the members that are on this board, sir.
So you had mentioned, I thought, that this board had come to this body before warning us about the shortfall, but this body did not act on it, and that's why we're here today. I thought I heard you mention that this board did indicate there was a shortfall coming prior to this year, that there's been communication in the past, has it not?
They may have not seen it coming, and once again, that again brings forward this piece of legislation. Because if this board was incapable of seeing the shortfall coming into the future as it is currently constituted, I think that that qualifies in itself to be able to bring forward a piece of legislation to again try to make it so that future boards can actually have a little bit of foresight and vision to possibly prevent occurrences into the tune of $124 million.
Okay. It sounds to me like we're killing the messenger because of the message. I mean, that's what it looks like here. Now, let me ask you about the 10-8.
Wait, 1 second.
If you'd like to comment on that.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that. That's how it sounds to you. I, on the other hand, do not see it that way. And I can't speak for everybody else in the chamber, but I actually believe that this is an improvement. When we see things that aren't working quite as well as what they should be, we should make every effort to improve upon it. And that is the obligation of this body. And this is exactly the process that's taking place. I've been around for a little while, and I've watched this take place over the years. I can't give specific examples, but I think we all realize that we have a duty to make sure that we do the best that we can, oversight, especially fiscally, for the things that we have responsibilities for, especially when it comes to looking out for the taxpayers and our state employees.
Okay. Now, going from 10-8, there's 2 members that will no longer be serving on there. One of those positions is the public position. What was the logic or rationale of why we should take the public off this board? I would think that if we want to be responsible for taxpayers' dollars and we want to make sure that we're accountable to the public and that you know they should have input into this process, because after all, it's the people's government. Why are we taking away the public representative from one of those 2?
Bear with me one moment.
Senator, it's going to be difficult for me to answer that question, except for I think that the best way that I could do that is to say, sure, you had 5 members before a public at large. And it follows up where it struck out. The governor shall appoint the member representing the interest of education employees from a list of 3 names submitted by the largest organization of education employees in the state, and that the governor shall appoint the member representing the interest of the organized labor from a list of the 3 names, and the 5 members appointed, the public shall have experience in financing, development, management, and employee benefit programs. And I think that where this legislation has went is the fact that, sure, they've reduced 1 member of the public, but what they did was they defined the talents and the qualifications of this to a much narrower scope that should be more effective, not less effective, for the PEI board itself. That is my interpretation.
Okay, but you would agree that one of those members that we're taking off is actually a member that's appointed from the public and in general. And I mean, as far as it's a public representative that's being taken off this board. Is that correct?
You're going to have to repeat that question because I got lost.
Going from 10 to 8, it's reducing the board from 10 to 8. Therefore, there's 2 members on that board that will not be on there if this piece of legislation passes. One of those is the representative of the public that we're taking off the board. And I want to understand that, and I want to make sure I'm clear on that, that's one of the 2 that's no longer going to be serving on the board, is a representative from the public.
That is true, but bear with me for one moment. Council informs me, and I'd forgotten about that. They don't even have a full body now. They have 8 members on there now, and my understanding is from council there's 2 vacancies.
Well, they have 8 members that are appointed. There's 2 vacancies. That means it's a 10-member board. So what 2 vacancies are there now? Which group are they representing other than the
We
public?
don't have that information before us right now.
What's that?
I said we don't have that information before us.
Okay. So I mean, I understand this legislature's attack on organized labor. So you got one representatives being attacked, and they're off the board, okay, and that's here or there. But what I don't understand is the attack on the public representative. I don't understand on that why we're taking that particular representative from the people, from the public, off of the PEIA board, and thinking that that board's going to become more efficient and more representative. And I just want to know, has that been discussed in GovOrg? Because I don't serve on your committee, so I didn't know if that was discussed.
Yeah, I don't remember that being part of the discussion in government organization.
And you wouldn't be able to, you don't have an opinion on that? On why we're taking the public person off the PEIA board?
Whether I have a position or not, that's irrelevant to the discussion of this bill. What I personally feel about, and on however many members that's on there or not, is irrelevant.
Well, you're the chairman of this.
So what's that got to do with anything? The
Well,
last time I checked, I facilitate the will of the committee. I don't dictate it.
Well, I don't know. You stood up to explain the bill. I just was asking you a question.
Well, you and I answered it pretty
Okay.
clearly just now.
Thank you. Mr. President, if the senator from Morgan would yield, because I have a question regarding one of the bills that had passed here that I didn't get an answer to.
Will the senator from Morgan yield? It appears so.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, I know this didn't come through your committee, did it? I mean, this particular bill
The bill we're under consideration right now?
did not come through your committee. Is that correct?
It did
Okay,
not.
the question I have related to this is the senator the senior senator from the 15th had indicated that part of the problem of PEIA was this aspect of a fraud. And I thought we did pass legislation here this session, if I recall, that probably came from your committee that actually addressed that issue. Did we not?
The senator from Berkeley's memory is good. We did. The Judiciary Committee reported a bill. Now, I don't know whether it's passed the House. I don't know what fate it's met in the House of Delegates. But we did have a bill under consideration in the Senate Judiciary Committee, which came to this floor and was, I believe, passed by this floor, that gave some expanded investigative authorities and created some new offenses with respect to fraud within the PEIA.
And so that was necessary, that bill was necessary in order to address that problem. Is that correct?
Well, I will concede that any measure we pass is something we hope helps to address a problem. I won't, if the gentleman is trying to get me to say that it's the only thing we have to do to address the problem, then I won't go as far as that.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying the bill we passed went to addressing this problem, and it needed legislation in order to address the problem.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I guess my thinking here is, then why are we blaming the PEIA board for that problem when it needed legislation from us to address that problem, they couldn't have done it, evidently, by themselves. Do you know if that discussion was given in your committee, or do you remember?
When we discussed the legislation to authorize the investigation and prosecution of fraud within the PEIA, we did not discuss the composition of the board. That was not something that was within the scope of the bill we had under our consideration.
But did you have discussions that under the present laws, could that board have addressed the issue without the legislation? Was the legislation necessary to address it, or could the board already have the authority to address the issue without the legislation? Was that discussed?
I don't think it was discussed in detail. I think that the view was that additional tools were necessary. Additional tools were necessary for this board to address that problem. Okay, thank you, Senator. This seems to me that we're blaming a board that didn't have the tools to address the problem, and now we're reconstituting it. And Mr. President, we're saying that now we're fixing PEIA, which I think the people out there in West Virginia ought to really see through this charade. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Senior Senator from the 8th.
There it is. I just want to stand up and speak in favor of the bill. To say that this is an illusion that we're fixing PEIA, I don't think that anybody has said that. I don't think this is a fix to everything with PEIA. I think that there are multiple facets that we have to go forward with to do that. However, I want to talk about the idea behind this. Being in the insurance industry, I do health insurance. I work in health insurance. I deal with employee benefits. I see the cost of health care rising up in all sectors of health insurance. When we talk about this board, unlike just about any other board in state government, this board oversees more than $1 billion of state taxpayer money. So by asking to have individuals who are at a certain high level of qualification, and I'm not saying that people on the board before didn't have high levels of qualification, but to ask for people who have experience in the insurance industry, to have an actuary, to have accountants, to have individuals who know trends of health care on there, putting that high level experience on the board could only create a better outcome for the future of our public employees who depend on this health insurance for their families. I think what this does, or at least what this is an attempt to do, is to put individuals who have a great understanding of the health insurance, the fields of health insurance, the health insurance industry, into a place where they can help with new trends in medicine, that we're trying to find ways to save costs. I think that it is a very good attempt to really put individuals in place. And yes, individuals from public as well are on the board for individuals on place to aid with PEIA. And I really think it is a great intent to move our state forward and to help. It doesn't solve every problem, but hopefully it can help us in controlling the high cost of health insurance. I urge passage, Mr. President.
Further discussion? Yep. Senator from Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do speak in opposition to this piece of legislation. I was concerned in committee when we discussed this, and one of the persons I asked to speak to was Mr. Cheatham, who happened to be in the committee meeting the day we discussed it. And I asked him the question, is there a problem with the board? And very quick, easy response was no. Do you need to replace the board? I think it was something of that similar question, and again, his response was it wasn't necessary. Now, what we're doing here, and I appreciate the Senator from the 15th desire to address PEIA. This isn't how we address PEIA and fix it. He talked about tweaking the board. We're not tweaking the board, we're destroying the board because we want a new board. And why do we destroy a board? Well, we don't like the answer or the questions they ask us or the answers they give us when we ask the questions, so we get rid of them. And in this situation, we've tweaked them all out and we're putting a new one in. Now, I think we've taken experience, good experience off a board who's been serving. These people have been appointed by the governor. It's his responsibility to appoint this board and get the right people on the board. We're taking good, experienced people, who many of them would be glad to go off. They said that one person spoke to committee and said his wife would be very happy for him to be off the board because he seems all he does is meet, and it gets tiring. But we're taking experience and we're throwing it out, 10 people who have experience. We're throwing them out, appointed by the governor, and we're going to say we tweak it with 8 new people that have never served on a PEIA board, and they're going to be able to make all the changes we need. I also agree with the senator from the 15th when he said many share the blame. A lot of us do share the blame of what's happened in PEIA, but sharing the blame doesn't mean you fire the messenger. Sharing the blame means we step up the plate and take care of the problem. The finance chair has said that they are dealing with that and they're working with that, and he's an honorable man, and I trust him what he's saying with that. But the public needs to know that we're dealing with the problem, not dealing with the person who comes and tells us there's a problem. Also, this board did see this problem coming. They've been to us in the past. They said, we do have a problem. There was a reserve that had been built up in PEIA. I don't serve on finance, and I've talked to PEIA board members. They had a reserve, and they knew they could not ask for extra money until that reserve was spent down to a certain level. And they weren't going to come to this body and say, we have to have, we have to have, we have to have. They got to that level, and then it became very desperate. Now, we had a choice, a promise we made to public employees, and it was a very important promise, is that while we don't pay you much, we're going to give you decent insurance. Well, we could change that promise and start cutting what we give them, and their benefits could be different, it could be worse. Or we could stick to our word and say that we'll step up to the plate and do what's responsible when this board has come to tell us there's a problem. And that's what this board did. We can blame them all we want because they made us look bad or made us feel bad, but this board spoke the truth. And I'll tell you, anytime a board of state government that has been appointed by the governor speaks the truth and we fire them all and start over, we've got problems with ourselves. Because if we don't step up to the plate and do what's responsible, if we don't become leaders, maybe we're the ones that need to be replaced, not this board. So I would encourage you to reject this bill. Let's keep the PEIA board as it is. It's functioning, it's working, it's doing a decent job. We have good membership on that board. People who are doing a hard-working job, people the governor has appointed to do their job. So I encourage you to reject this legislation.
Further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 18 yeas, 16 nays, 0 absent. Not voting. More than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed.